Hi, guys. Welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe, and I'm laughing because I've tried to record this video a few times, and I managed to curse every time. And so this time, I hope I don't. I'm Joe, and I'm going to try to react to this past weekend's game, which is a real tragedy if you're a Saints fan. The past weekend's Week 3 matchup between our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints, as we travel to historic Lambeau Field to take on the Green Bay Packers. And the Saints go up 17-0 in the first half and take that lead into the fourth quarter and lose. Final score, Packers 18, Saints 17. If you just stop the game right before Derek Carr gets sacked and injured, you're pretty happy. You're actually feeling really good. As a matter of fact, I feel like the Saints are running away with this thing. Green Bay can't get anything going. Our defense is playing so good. And on top of that, they keep shooting themselves in the foot with penalty after penalty and just inconsistent play. They have half a team to begin with. All of their players, their top 5 Pro Bowl players are all out of the lineup. And we managed to lose the game. Giving up 18 points in one quarter is not going to cut it. How do you blame the defense? They play all this 3 quarters of shutout football. And how long can you cover before you finally give something up? I mean, we went the entire first half without getting penalized much, and I mean, we won the turnover battle. Everything was going our way until Derek Carr gets injured, and then after that, the play calling, in my opinion, left something to be desired. In the first drive without Carr, we ran the ball 3 times, and we burned 2.5 minutes off the clock. This was in the third quarter still. It was a 6-play drive. It only got 14 yards, but we were on the Packers' 37-yard line, and we decided to pass the ball, and then we ended up taking a delay of game penalty. We conceded to punt. Now, from the 37-yard line, that's a 54-yard field goal, and the wind was to our back at the time. And to me, it was an indication that we didn't trust Groupie to go out there and make a kick. This is the third quarter, and we're up 17-0. We're dominating this game, and I keep counting in my head. One field goal, and they're going to have to score 3 touchdowns to win this game. I feel like a field goal at that moment puts the game out of reach. I mean, ultimately, 3 more points would have won the game for the Saints, whether we got it at the end of the game or here in the third quarter. But we didn't. We played this chicken stuff, conservative, let's go ahead and punt and lean on our defense. I want that to work. It feels like with this team it should work. But there's been times when we were aggressive and it worked. There were times when we were aggressive and it wasn't. And at this point, you're metaphorically stepping on their neck, like Bobby Hebert would say. You've done knocked a snot bubble out of them. Let's just go ahead. If you want to punt and make them go the whole field, and they did. They ended up marching the whole field after we punted. They didn't get anything out of it, but they marched the whole field. You make the field goal, the game's pretty much over. You miss the field goal there, and they take over with only 50-something yards to go. Your defense is still good. Your defense is still keeping them out of the end zone. I don't know. Hindsight's 20/20. I'm not going to try to rant too much. I'm trying to be even-minded about it. And for 3 quarters, we really had this team beat. And if Carr wouldn't have got injured, the way the offense was moving, albeit, short yardage passes, there was still it felt like a consistency. We ran the ball more in the first half for sure. But then the last 4 drives in the fourth quarter with Jameis Winston, we only ran the ball 4 times. So in the 5 drives that Winston was out there, we only ran the ball 7 times. All of this in the second half. All of this with a lead. And it just doesn't make sense. We end up burning about 9 minutes of clock from the end of the third quarter till the end of the game. We only managed to burn about 9 minutes. And if we would have ran the ball just a couple of more times, we could have burned a couple of more minutes. Anyway, this whole video could be a rant. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the stats, and we're going to get through this. Derek Carr finishes 13 out of 18 for 103 yards and a touchdown. He was sacked 3 times, twice in the first half, once in the third quarter, and that was the dreaded sack that knocked him out. He has a sprained AC joint in his throwing shoulder. He's going to miss probably anywhere from 1 to 6 weeks. We don't know yet, and you'll have to stay tuned to the end of the week to find out more on the injury. They're not releasing details yet. They know the severity of the sprain. They're just telling everyone, hey, we dodged a bullet. It's not as bad as we thought. Drew Brees had an injury like this, and he ended up missing 1 game. I think Luke McCown was our quarterback, and we lost that game. And then Drew Brees came back the next week. So it was a low-grade AC joint sprain. And Drew Brees said that he didn't throw a pass that whole week leading up to the game he returned. It was the only time in his career he had ever gone cold into a game. But I think that's what he had to do to make it back in 2 weeks. And I don't know what Carr's going to have to do, but we're going to go ahead and lean on Jameis Winston until Carr gets back. Winston finishes the game 10 out of 16 for 101 yards. He was sacked once. Winston looked okay. I didn't have a problem with his play. I had a problem with not running the ball or focusing on getting this time run off the clock. When you're up 17-0 and your defense is playing well, it's okay to become conservative at that point. It's okay if you're burning the clock. Okay, now, Winston completed 10 balls, so the clock still runs when you do that. I got to blame somebody, and I want to blame the offensive line. I really do. Doug Marrone is the guy I'm focusing on. We've had these offensive linemen now for, this group kind of came together over the last 6 years, and Penning was the final addition here, and they're just not playing well together. And I got to blame the coach and the design and the scheme of everything that's being taught and what they're going out there being told to do. They're not working well together. I don't know if McCoy would be a better center or guard. Maybe he should have been at guard. Cesar Ruiz came out of college as a center. We put him at guard. Maybe he should be a center. Maybe Ryan Remchek should be playing left tackle. Maybe he should have switched over the second we lost Teron Armstead. Maybe Penning should have been forced to play right tackle. Maybe he should be at guard. Maybe we should do a shakeup like that to try to save our quarterback, because we were saying this was going to get Carr hurt, and it got him hurt. Now I'm hearing a lot of pundits saying nobody wants to get behind this offensive line. They're so bad. And Winston, in my opinion, he's an okay quarterback. He's got better than average arm talent. But I don't know if this is going to work. He tends to wait for longer routes to develop, and this offensive line is not going to allow you to wait. By the way, Winston gets hurt a lot in his career with the Saints, so it's weird. But I know one thing, anybody that complained about Carr should have a different perspective on it now. It's not that we would have done great with Carr remaining in the game. It's just that as bad as this offensive line is, it's that much harder for a quarterback. I mean, maybe that's what's wrong with the offensive line. Maybe they're all worried about the other one sucking so much that they have to do extra to make sure that, and then, or maybe they have lost confidence. Maybe they know they suck. That's all anyone's talking about is how bad this offensive line is. So you know, instead of reshuffling the entire offensive line, focus on, the coaching, I would say. Doug Marrone, you're gone. Put somebody else in there. Shake things up. At least let the players on the offensive line know. Bring in La'el Collins. Bring in some other veterans. Shake stuff up because you got to do something. You're getting your quarterbacks killed. In the running game, Kendre Miller finishes with 9 carries for 34 yards. That's an average of 3.8 a carry. Tony Jones Jr. had 8 carries for 31 yards. That's an average of 3.9. I think the running game looked pretty good. Here you go with a rookie, and an undrafted guy, and they're almost at 4 yards a carry. Way better than what the running backs have been averaging so far this year in preseason and the regular season. I don't know. It felt like the running game was working. Taysom Hill had 4 carries for only 12 yards. And Rashid Shaheed had 1 carry that got nothing. I think the running game was okay. The offensive line should be, especially Penning, should be dominating in the running game. But, this was, in my opinion, the weakest of the fronts that this offense has had to face. And I think there were opportunities in the running game. Obviously, the Packers' defense is notorious for giving up running plays. So I just don't think we focused on it enough. In the end, we only rushed the ball 22 times for 77 yards. And against the Packers, that's embarrassing. Atlanta had over 200 against them last week. Okay. Receiving the ball, Chris Olave, all-world, 8 catches, 104 yards. He was targeted 11 times, 8 catches. Pretty good. Michael Thomas was targeted 9 times. He caught 6 balls for 50 yards. Winston was leaning on Thomas pretty heavily in the second half. I think that's a combo that's going to continue as long as Carr's out. Winston likes his big receivers. Tony Jones Jr. had 4 catches for 21 yards on 4 targets. Juwan Johnson was targeted 4 times. He only caught 2 balls for 12 yards. Taysom Hill had 1 catch for 9 yards. Jimmy Graham was targeted once and had that catch. It was in the red zone. It was a touchdown for 8 yards. And welcome back, Jimmy Graham. He does it in a stadium that he played in for years. He only had 3 touchdowns as a Packer. And he goes back to Lambeau and gets one more for the Saints, his first touchdown of the regular season. Welcome back, Jimmy Graham. Kendre Miller had 1 catch on 1 target that netted nothing. Missing from this list is wide receiver Rashid Shaheed. He was targeted twice, but he had no catches. Something ain't right when Rashid Shaheed is not getting the ball in his hands. He did, however, have a brilliant punt return for a touchdown, the first for the Saints in years, 3 years. Rashid Shaheed, a 76-yard punt return. Oh, well, I can't really complain too much about the production of the players. I think the running backs did well. I think the receivers did well. We got a touchdown from a tight end. And the quarterbacks were, completion percentage were good. Their yards per attempt weren't that good, but completion percentage was good. I really feel like it's the play calling in the fourth quarter. You just bailed on the run when you shouldn't have, when your only goal should have been to run the clock out. So, all right, let's talk about the defensive stats. Did really well until the fourth quarter. Pete Werner led the team with 11 total tackles, but I had an issue with Werner. In the fourth quarter, when the Packers began drives that led to scores, Pete Werner was stuck out there covering wide receivers for some reason. Now, Green Bay did a good job in the second half. What they were doing was they were doing a no huddle, and they were forcing the Saints to keep the players out there that they had. So the Saints would come out with a not a base defense, but as base as it kind of gets. You know, we're winning 17-0. I'm sure that everything was a nickel. And we go out there and first down like this, and then the Packers just kept getting up to the line and running the next play and running the next play, and they were causing the Saints to get gassed, and they were also figuring out the personnel out there and then creating mismatches. And it worked, because on the field goal drive that gave the Packers the first 3 points they scored, Pete Werner got burned by wide receiver Dobbs in the deep middle of the field. How does that happen? How is Pete Werner covering a wide receiver? Because the offense figured something out and got you in a bad spot. Werner's too good of a player not to have on the field, but man, you're asking him to cover a wide receiver 20 yards down the field? That's not going to happen. That led to a field goal, and then when the Packers scored their first touchdown that drive, Werner was also covering a wide receiver. The rookie, I can't think of his name. I mean, this kind of stuff shouldn't happen. At that point, I'm assuming Demario Davis calls a timeout, or the coach calls a timeout and says, "No, we're getting the right personnel in there, and perhaps you should run dime for the rest of the quarter since you're up by 17 points." Anyway, so Werner leads with 11 tackles, but I'm not pleased with how the fourth quarter turned out. Cornerback Marshon Lattimore had 7 total tackles. He had a pass defensed. Lattimore had a lot of tackles. Seemed like he was playing off quite a bit in this game, and he allowed the 2-point conversion for sure. Very lackadaisical coverage. I guess he figured the quarterback couldn't make that throw from the position he was at all the way to that side of the field, but the quarterback did make that throw. And Lattimore gets burnt for the 2-point conversion. Alontae Taylor, in my opinion, player of the game. 5 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss. He had a sack, and he had 5 passes defensed. And I think 7 passes defense going into this game. 7 led the league, for the entire league. So it's pretty impressive for Taylor to get 5 in one game. However, he got burnt a couple of times. He got flagged on one of those big drives in the fourth quarter. I didn't think it was pass interference, but that's what happened. Isaac Yiadom, he has to be the starting cornerback. He gets 5 tackles, and he gets 4 passes defensed. Pretty great day for Yiadom. But he gets flagged as well, and, that was really good coverage. You don't allow the receiver to go back to the ball, but he didn't touch the receiver. He was between the receiver and the ball. The receiver tried to go back to the ball, but Yiadom didn't touch him early, so I didn't get it. Felt like there was something going on weird there. Both those flags against Taylor and Yiadom didn't rest well with me. Isaiah Foskey gets a lot of playing time in this game. He finishes with 4 tackles. Way to go, Foskey. Carl Granderson finishes the game with 4 tackles. Granderson was lined up against the backup left tackle and backup left guard for this entire game, and I expected Granderson to take this game over. And once again, it's like he plays down to the competition. Now, he's been playing lights out all year long, and I thought we wasn't going to have to worry about that. But this is a moment when Granderson should have taken charge. 4 tackles, good. Okay. No quarterback hits, no sacks. Not good enough. It's not like you were going against their Pro Bowl starters. Both of them were out. You were going against backups. Jordan Howden, the rookie, has to get the start at safety. He finishes with 4 tackles. Not bad. He didn't seem out of sorts out there. There were a couple of things, but, overall, not bad. Colin Saunders has 1 quarterback hit and 4 tackles. Tyrann Mathieu had 3 tackles, including a pass defensed, which should have been an interception, and he knows it. Demario Davis, 3 tackles, 1 quarterback hit. When Demario Davis finishes a game with only 3 total tackles, you know that there was a game plan to avoid him at all costs. Seems like it, unless Davis had a bad day. I didn't watch the film on everything, the all 22 or whatever, but yeah, that's pretty weird. Bryan Bresee had 2 tackles and a pass defense. Bryan Bresee had both those tackles. They were on running plays, and it was good to see Bresee out there making tackles in the running game. That's the weakness. You know, he needs to develop a lot as a rookie in all kinds of areas, but to me, that was the part that he needed to get better at the most, playing against the run so he can be more of an every down defensive tackle. He's getting a lot of playing time. And finishes with 2 tackles on running plays and a pass defense. Good job, Bresee. TJ Gray had 2 tackles. Malcolm Roach had 2 tackles and a tackle for a loss. And Nephi Sewell with 2 tackles. Okay. We allow the Packers 95 total rushing yards. It's a shame because we really shut the rush down the entire game. And Jordan Love ended up with like 8 carries for 30-something, 40 yards. He had 1 run of 24 yards late in the game, which led to a score. And that was the worst. And that's the kind of stuff that has always given our defense problems of late when a quarterback decides to run. And it seems like we just can't get to him fast enough. We give him problems as long as he's behind the line of scrimmage. But once they cross the line of scrimmage, they seem to take off. You know, somebody hits him while he's running on the sideline, and you get flagged for it. So, but there you go, the rushing attack of the Pack, leading rusher quarterback. On 3rd down, we allowed Green Bay to convert 8 out of 18. That's not good. They couldn't stay on the field in the first half. Well, a lot of that was in the second half. We were only 4 of 14 on 3rd downs. The Packers had 11 penalties in this game for 90 yards, and all of that was happening to them while we were increasing our lead, maintaining our lead. And then we end up with 7 penalties for 102 yards. So we had way fewer penalties, but more yardage. And I don't agree with those PI calls. I really don't. There's some penalties that are just obvious, you know, Michael Thomas holding and false start and stuff like that. But those PI calls in the 4th quarter got us. Green Bay was doing that no huddle in the second half, and that really, you know, changed the chessboard. And at that point, I don't think Dennis Allen did what needed to be done to counteract that. It's the first time that I feel like Allen failed at his duties as a defensive coordinator. When you give up 18 points in the 4th quarter, yeah, you've definitely failed to make the necessary adjustments to counter what they did, because it was obvious what they were doing, and it was working. We only got 1 sack in the game. That was Alontae Taylor. We allow 4 sacks. And yeah, with 11 minutes to go in the game, Green Bay failed on a 4th and 2, and you know, we had 11. All we had to do was run that clock out. We end up with, in 4 drives, running the ball 4 times from that 11-minute mark. That's the biggest disappointment to me. The defensive adjustments in the 4th quarter and the offensive adjustments late in the game. You can be aggressive at times. You can be conservative at times. When you're winning 17-0, it's okay to be conservative. It's okay. It's okay to take the points that are there. That's pretty much all I got. It's a depressing thing. We lose by 1 point, and we're now 2-1. We're still number one in our division. The offensive, let's start with defense. Defensive players of the game. I'm going to give it to cornerback Alontae Taylor, despite the struggles with the penalty. He had a fantastic day. He played all over the place, too. He went outside on some plays. He went inside on some plays. So Taylor's looking like a pretty good player. I'm also going to give credit to Isaac Yiadom for having to start the game and play and doing really well. And I'm also going to give a nod to the two running backs. I think for a rookie, Kendre Miller did pretty good, averaging almost 4 yards a carry. And Tony Jones Jr., once again, averaging almost 4 yards a carry, catching 4 balls. Every time he's targeted, he catches it. I think a combination of Miller and Jones could have really solidified the win if we'd have leaned on him a little more in that fourth quarter. On the offensive side of the ball, well, I think Carr did pretty good, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to Chris Olave. And, man, I was talking about defense and then offense. I'm so sorry, y'all. Defense, I'm going to give it to Jordan Howden for being a rookie and coming in and playing pretty well. And linebacker Pete Werner, 11 total tackles. Getting stuck covering a wide receiver, I can't really blame him for not being able to do it. I blame the coach for putting him in that situation. Now we're going to pull up the offensive players of the game. I already talked about the running backs. They did great. But, yeah, the players of the game, obviously, Chris Olave and Michael Thomas. Getting it done, making catches. We can lean on those guys. We can lean on Rashid, too, if we decide to throw the ball to him. All right, so there you go. I'm sorry about messing that end up. I'm so tired right now, and this game is not fun to talk about. I don't know who's going to watch a half-hour breakdown of this crap, but I sure tried to record it a couple of times. I couldn't do it without cursing. Guys, subscribe to Rosenfield 10. I'm going to be breaking down the upcoming matchup between the Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That video will probably come out Thursday. And until then, I'll talk to you later. Who dat?